everyone. I am so excited to be on tonight for this edition of the Private Practice Show, where we are going to be joined by the messy SLP. So Dani Gaff is going to come on. Dani is a private practitioner. She's a former school SLP, and she's also an alum of the Start Your Private Practice program. And what she's going to do is she's going to share her experience of being a part-time private practitioner who started on the side and has now shifted into full-time private practice. So let me go ahead. I know lots of y'all follow Dani. I love her on Instagram. I also love her as a person, but it's going to be really cool for everyone to hear kind of like the backstory of how Dani got started in private practice and how she shifted to full-time private practice. How's it going, Dani?
Hey, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Are you having a good day so
Yeah,
far?
it's been a great day. It was a day in my office, so I loved it.
I love it. I love it. So I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody on Instagram knows who you are, but just in case, can you kind of introduce yourself and share who you are and also how you got started in private practice?
Yeah, so I'm Dani Gaff. I am a speech language pathologist. I graduated in 2018, so this is 6 years of being an SLP, which is awesome and exciting. I've worked everywhere in an elementary school, now a high school. I have worked in private practice. I now own my own private practice. I worked in a SNF. I worked in a feeding and swallowing clinic. I've been all over the place, and I'm currently in South Bend, Indiana. And for almost a year, I've been operating my private practice full time with a school contract, and then running my own office. And starting next week on Monday, I start in my own office full time. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. I love everything about that, right? I know that you're a hard worker, right? And I know that you've been in like a million different settings.
Yeah.
I know that you've talked about just like being making sure that you're like helping all the kids and whatever else. But something I also really appreciate about you is like talking about boundaries and burnout and all
Yes,
that kind of stuff, right?
absolutely.
So talk a little bit more about that, because that's something that I think that people who follow you on Instagram have also kind of seen over the years, like how you've been very careful about boundaries.
Yeah, it started off because I had no boundaries for myself. So please hear, I say myself. These were all self-imposed lack of boundaries, I guess I should say. I didn't have grad school professors telling me I needed to stay up and get this GPA and stuff. I was in a really positive grad school environment. But I just burnt myself out with these self-inflicted expectations. Like I had to achieve this to be a good SLP. And then when I graduated grad school, my physical health was just not in a good spot. I was so burnt out from trying to do all the things that I was tired all the time. I was just not in a good place when I graduated. And then I entered a CF that I loved. It was at a private practice, SLP owned and operated, and I loved it. But again, it was pay per session. And I thought, well, this is the number I have to achieve if I want to live comfortably. And so I had the autonomy in that practice to make my own schedule, stack my own schedule, and stuff like that. And gosh, I was burnt out. I was 27, and I was waking up Saturday mornings, and I would be in the coffee shop Saturday mornings catching up on paperwork that I didn't do during the week because I had stacked my schedule so full of back-to-back clients, because if there was a cancellation, I wouldn't get paid. And again, self-inflicted. My bosses were not encouraging me to do that, but it was this thing. And so when I graduated, or when I finished my CF, and I ended up moving to a travel job, I just kind of went, this is not sustainable. And for, I would say, a little bit of time, I questioned, I was like, why did I do this if this is how this is going to be? And then realized that I was the common denominator. Now, we do have environments that I do think are conducive to burnout and stress and overworking and stuff. But it was also me. It's that Taylor Swift song, like, hi, I'm definitely the problem. It's very much me. And so I think, to be honest, meeting my husband was a big thing, because I just enjoy time with him so much. And then when we first started dating, it was, I either work a little bit extra at home or I spend time with him, and he was going to take that priority all the time. And that's when I went, oh, if I take this work home, then I'm not spending that time with him, and I'm not spending time for myself. And these are all the things that I'm missing out on by taking home by taking all this work home and all of this stuff. And so I just kind of started going, I'm just not going to do that. That's just too much. And so really started putting those boundaries up, and it's been hard. And there are times where I go, am I continuing to be the problem? Is this now a problem that I'm putting up boundaries? But I think that we're now in a really interesting time in the field, because I think more people are putting up boundaries. But it's not a perfect, there is the SLP guilt. There's I told my husband just before this, I should be working on an eval. He was like, or you don't, and that's okay. And it was like, great, that's okay.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of the things that I think is interesting too is like we take on all of this guilt, but there's plenty of other professions that don't have all of that guilt associated, right?
Yeah.
And so like we also can take a lesson from other people or other professions that, you know, you can do a really great job, you can work really hard, but you
Yeah.
can also like try to have a life, right? Because
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's a shift that's starting to happen where like we all go into this profession to help people, right?
Mm.
But there does seem to be a little bit of a wake up call at some point where people are like, you know what? I can continue to help people, but if I don't help myself in the process, I'm going to lose myself. I'm going to get burned out.
Mm-hmm.
And either I'm going to, you know, not enjoy my job anymore, or like maybe
Yeah.
even leave the profession altogether.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, you know, like I said, I had a grad school experience that was fabulous. I have nothing but wonderful things to say about the professors, about my classmates. I mean, I truly had a great experience, and I'm learning the more SLPs I talk to that that was just not the case for everybody. And it's disappointing that, you know, I have heard of grad programs that are asking students to be on call for them, to call them and ask them to do things. And it's like, how is that? So you're setting the standard that that's okay, when if I was in a job where my employer said, hey, you have to be on call in case I need you first thing tomorrow morning, I might go, hey, we're gonna we might need to take a step back here, because that's a boundary that I'm just not willing to compromise. Once I'm at home, I'm at home. And you know, my voice, I have a Google Voice account for my business, and that app shuts down at 9 or 10 o'clock. So that I tell parents, hey, you are more than welcome to text or call me. Don't feel like you can't. After 10 o'clock, I don't get messages. I don't get phone calls. So feel free, have at it. I'll see it in the morning. And that's been a good thing. And I think just little things like that, people think it's like this whole new lifestyle change. You have to completely set up all these boundaries, and it's really baby steps. And I'm still really bad at it sometimes. And so it's, you know, just kind of being able to take those baby steps and try to set boundaries and try to find balance, because it is a long process, and it does go against what we really want to do. If I could work all the time for my kids and sustain my energy and my health and my relationships and everything, awesome. That would be fabulous. It's just not the way that it works.
Yeah, totally, totally. And so I applaud you for recognizing that for yourself, but also speaking out about it, like for other SLPs who like maybe haven't thought about that,
Yeah.
right? Or like they haven't even taken that step back to say, wait, you know, I need to prioritize my own health, my relationships, all of those things that you said so that I don't burn out, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I remember when you were first starting your practice, and you can correct me if I'm misremembering, but I remember you were working in a
Mm-hmm.
school and like that you loved AAC
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted to be able to do more AAC than you were doing in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the reasons why you wanted to see private clients. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like about saying like, hey, I have this job. Because I remember you weren't interested in leaving the job in the school for a long
No,
time, right?
I wasn't. No.
So that's part of this too, you guys, is that you can like change your mind. You can make
Mm-hmm.
different decisions like as time goes on, right? But when Dani first started her practice, she was like, you know what, I'm planning to just stay on the side of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't like, there was something missing though in the daytime for you in your regular job that led you to want to start seeing private clients on the side. Can you share what that was?
Yeah. So it all kind of happened. I feel like this is how my career has been, because this is kind of how I got into grad school. I was like, I'll try it and we'll see. And then here I am, and I love it so much. But I was, you know, my husband and I were together, and we weren't married yet. And I had this fabulous SLP mentor, Caitlin, who's amazing and still a good friend. And she runs her own private practice on the side as well. And she was like, you should start a private practice. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that, whatever, and earn a little bit of extra cash. And then it turned into this thing where there was just freedom and flexibility, where I could be a little bit picky and I could be a little choosy with the clients that I took on. And I was, because there are there are boundaries kind of set into that, right? I get off work at 3:30 or 4. I can't take 5 clients outside of, my work time. It's just not feasible. Especially being a basketball coach's wife, that would be a lot. But I had 3 clients, and they were clients that I was really, um, just, it was a population that I really wanted to work with. Autism. I had 2 autistic kids, both of whom were working on AAC. And I think it was just the flexibility and the freedom to kind of work with them in a way that I wanted to, where it was like, hey, we're going to do this once a week for 30 minutes. It was in that collaborative manner with the parents. And for a while, I had the mentality of, if I could do speech therapy without the parents, it would be just really awesome, because sometimes it can be hard, right? And I've so abandoned that mentality, and no offense to any of the parents out there, that's a me problem. Again, I have no issue saying it's a me problem. Because I felt like there were I got performance anxiety. There was all this I wanted to please, right? But then when you go into the school and you don't have that parent involvement, and you can't show them, every single week when you see their kid, this is what they're doing and this is how you can encourage this. It was hard, and I missed that because I had that in private practice. And so yeah, it kind of fulfilled me in that way. And I initially thought, when I went part-time into this, well, part-time in my office, I'm full-time for myself with a school contract and office time. But when I started in the office, I thought for sure I'd get after school or TIC kids. And just by happenstance, it's been a lot of the population that I've really wanted to work with. I have a handful of AAC clients, that we're working on, trialing devices and working on different things. And it's kind of just, it is more of a general practice, but the parent involvement is amazing. I give parents the option. You can go finish your coffee while it's warm in the car, or you can stay in. And all of my parents opt to stay in. And I think that was a big piece for me, was when I was doing this after school, it was the parent involvement. It was being in their home. It was just not having the IEP, and like to be so data focused. Data is important, right? If we don't have data, we only have opinions. But to not be like, well, I have to provide data for every little thing that I do, or I have to do progress reports, so I have to make sure I do data, and just kind of go with the flow, was really fulfilling and brought me a lot of joy that I was missing for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's why we got into this profession also, right?
Yeah.
Is like we just wanted to help people. And then you kind of get into your profession, you're like, wait a minute, I have to write reports, I have to collect data all the time, like I have to like do all these
Mm-hmm.
things, right? And yes, it's important, but it's also like kind of does get in the way of you just being able to be like present
Yes.
and creative and functional and whatever else. So I'm glad too that you're, also saying what I think a lot of people are thinking is like they got into this profession to have some
Mm-hmm.
flexibility, to be able to treat people the way that they wanted to. But then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, there's all these like rules that I didn't even know about. And
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you mean I can't see that kid who really needs therapy? Period. Or I can't see them, I have to see them in a group, or I have to do all
Mm-hmm.
these things. And you're like,
Totally.
what the heck? Like, I'm the clinician, I'm the one with the master's degree or higher,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I should be able to make these decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a freedom that I've gotten. Now I know that and that's a realm I will be dipping my toes into soon with insurance. There are, right, like it's never perfect. And I think that there is, because there are no guidelines on when my progress notes are due, like here in the private practice, right? It's on me. Sometimes it is easy to go like, we'll get it done. And then you're like I am right now, where I'm super behind on paperwork. And so there is a
Yeah.
downside to it for sure. Like there are ways that you have to kind of put up your own kind of guardrails, if you will. But I think that you're right. Like having the flexibility, or parents go, I can't make this work, for scheduling, or because they can't afford it or whatever. I can't make this work once a week. Can we do once every other week? Or, hey, I really want to nip this in the bud over the summer. Can we do twice a week? Yeah, man, whatever you want. Like, this is my recommendation. Then we can have that conversation. And I feel like it's just so collaborative in ways that we just can't, in different settings. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about too is your transition from being like full time in the schools to now heading to full time for yourself,
Yeah.
right? And I think that, one of the things I teach in the start program is to start your private practice on the side so that
Mm-hmm.
you can keep your job, you can keep your benefits, you can test the private practice waters and see if you like it, start making that extra income.
Yeah.
But at some point, people do start to kind of do the math and figure out, like, okay, like, or not even the math is part of it,
Right.
but it's also like a pro con, like, benefits analysis, right? Where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, should I stay in my job or should I shift to full time for
Right.
myself? What went into that decision for you, and how did you make that decision?
Um, I would say my husband kind of made the decision, and stick with me here because he was the one that brought it up much earlier than I was even entertaining it. And I was like, whatever, you're crazy. Like, no way. No way, no how. We're not doing that. And I would say probably year two in the schools, he was like, you really should do this full time. And I was like, nope, I'm doing it on the side. Thank you so much. And that was just what I was going to do. And then year three in the elementary school I was at, I was like, I was starting to get burnout. There were just a lot of things being placed on the building that I was in. And I just was kind of like, I don't know. I was losing my joy because of all the other stuff. I was in SLP writing a behavior plan. I don't know how to write a behavior plan. Like little things here that I was like, this is not what I want. This is not what I want to do. And so um, there were moments of just really a lot of stress. And, my husband and I had the conversation of, hey, something needs to change. And so I thought, well, I'll just go and work for another school district. And so I had actually in January of 2023, I had verbally committed to working for another local school district, and I was really excited. But then I had this nagging, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And so then talking to my husband about it, I said, I think I need to go full time. And, maybe I work part time for the schools and part time in my own office or on my own. I was going to see kids in their homes. And he said, I think that's a good idea. I was like, okay, well, what does that look like? And then it was like, well, I could technically contract through my own business. And it was like, well, let's just see what the school districts say. So I had uh, decommitted, if you will, from that. I had turned down the position from that school district. And then another local school district I offered, I wrote up my contract proposal and I said, this is what I will charge per hour. And I thought, they're not going to, there's no way they're going to pay me that per hour. And then same thing with the school district that I'm currently at, which was the district I've been at for the past 4 years. And I said, no way they're going to pay me that. And by golly, they did. And then it was just like, oh, okay. And then in August, it all started. I started working full time for myself. And it was just kind of one of those things where there was so much joy in running the private practice and just the autonomy and everything that it kind of was. I don't want to say the only answer because I don't think there was a right or wrong path, but I think in terms of joy and just the freedom and the flexibility that I was looking for, private practice offered that. So it was I was very reluctant. And even I am starting on Monday full time in my own office, and I'm still like, in about 30 minutes, I'll be having a breakdown about it, and I'll be running the numbers and going like, what? But it's just because change is hard, and so I've been super reluctant. And my husband will say that I would say about twice, maybe 3 or 4 times a week now, I'm going, this is a bad decision because you just lose some of the safeguards, some of the safety net that you have when you are working in a school and you have a reliable paycheck. There's a little bit less, but then I have days like today where it was an awesome day at the office and I'm like, man, we'll figure it out. So the joy is just unparalleled in my office.
Yeah. Well, and I just love, like, I don't know, people who are watching slash listening, like, how many times have you said the word joy in the last, like, 18 minutes, right?
Yeah,
It is
a
so,
lot.
like, that is, like, such an amazing word. Like, if you think
Yeah,
about, like, I don't know if the opposite of burnout is joy, but, like, it certainly feels like it could be,
could
right?
be.
And, like,
Hmm.
how great that now you're feeling that way, where, like, before, like, so I also started my private practice. I think you said you were 27, I was 26, same thing. But,
Hmm.
like, we both essentially had early career burnout, which at the
Yep.
time, that there wasn't, that phrase didn't exist. We weren't talking at all about burnout back in, like, 2007, 2008, which is when I was in that situation. And so, like, I just love that you've gotten to this place where you've literally created something for yourself where now you do have that joy
Hmm.
and you have that freedom and you have that flexibility and you have that fulfillment. Like that is absolutely huge, Dani. Like you took something that you knew that you wanted to do and you made it work and you literally created a job that you love. And how amazing is that?
Thanks. I mean, it doesn't like, there's so much support that I think people don't understand. You know, it's really easy to snap a picture and post on Instagram and go, you know, I'm going full time in my own office, which I was super excited about, right? But it doesn't like I can't even begin to talk about how much support I have from my husband, where he's day one, he's been like, let's do this, like let's rock and roll, let's ride, we'll figure this out. But then also the SLPs that I am with in the district currently, which it is heartbreaking to say goodbye to them because they're so amazing. Like they're just that group where you go, I can't, like you're everything. And so, but when I told some of them, they were just like, yeah, man, do it. Like everybody around me has just been so encouraging and so supportive. And so I think you just don't do it alone. You just don't always see the people on Instagram. You don't see the mascara running down my cheeks, me going, what am I doing? And my husband consoling me. You don't see that on Instagram. And so I think it is sometimes perceived as like, you put your mind to this and you rocked it and everything. And that's awesome, which, yeah, for sure. I did do a lot of it, but it doesn't happen alone. And I think that's something that I want to make clear because it's so easy to post on Instagram and go, I'm doing so well, when like there's a lot going on behind the scenes to make something like this happen.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like, and I say that all the time. Like, private practice is not for everyone. First of all,
Mm,
it's not easy street. Otherwise, everyone would do it, right? There are
right.
certainly ups and downs, but to me and to lots of other people, the ups like take care of the downs, right? Where you're like,
Without a doubt.
okay, if I can like decide that I don't want to start my day until 10 a.m. or I don't want to work on Fridays or I want to do exclusively this kind of therapy and this is the way that I want to do it, like all of those things that like you got into the profession to do, when you're actually able to do them and no one is telling you no, like that is so freeing. And that's what this whole thing is all about. And I love that you
Yeah.
have such a great support system. Like I love Eric. I love when you post about Eric. I remember when you guys were like getting married and part of the reason why you were seeing some clients was for like extra money
Yep.
for the wedding, because that's what I did too. And I
Yeah.
always really liked that and respected that about you. And so like it does make a difference. And
Yeah.
there's so many SLPs out there who do have, whether they're supportive partners or parents or sisters or best friends who are just
Mm,
cheering people on and saying, you got to do this. And it's usually the SLP who's like, I don't know, like I'm not good enough. I'm too young. I'm
yeah.
not qualified, blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
imposter syndrome garbage. And so like it's
Mm-hmm.
so great when you can like cut through that noise and finally say, you know what? I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work, I can always go back to my job
Yes.
or a different job.
Absolutely. And I mean, working on the school contract in my office, and now the school contract provided a lot of income, right? But this was a do it scared type thing last year. Didn't know what the school contract was going to look like. And when we went for taxes, because it's, you keep track of your income, but it's hard. And when you see, I saw that number and I almost doubled what I was making in the school by doing the school contract in the private practice. Now, I'll be taking a little bit of a pay cut without that school contract as we're building a caseload, but that being able to kind of see that number and turning to my husband and going, what, like I made that much. It was just because you don't think it's going to happen, right? And again, that school contract, I don't want to let anybody think that I'm making six figures in my own office starting Monday, because that's definitely not the case. But having that freedom and that flexibility, I had to take a week off in February and I didn't have to put in district days for it. I didn't have to clear it with anyone. I emailed the sped director and I said, hey, I'm going to be out for a week. And that was that. And I had to take a week off and I had time and I didn't feel stressed. And it was what it was. And I didn't have to clear it with anyone. I had to, I talked with my husband and that week was taken off. Right. And then to be able to say, hey, I also took a mental health day that day. And I also did this and this and this and this, right? I took a half day because I was super burnt out. Again, that flexibility that school contract provided, seeing I was able to do that and make a lot more money than I did the years prior was really like for me, like that's what could happen. And it goes up and down and it's all over the place, but it made it worth it. And, you know, transitioning now into this new phase, I'm planning on working Monday through Thursday and having Fridays to be in the office and clean the office and catch up on notes. So I'm not doing it Saturday morning. And my day ends early enough because I took on coaching high school boys volleyball this past season. And so then I know, yeah, let's throw another thing. Sure. Yeah. But I have the flexibility now to go, all right, my day, it's a hard out at 5 because I've got to get to practice and I can't take any more. And so I get to kind of mess with my schedule that way. And so it just, the flexibility is unparalleled. And even if this lasts for a year, and then I go, okay, you know, I did it and I had flexibility for a year and it's maybe not going to work out. I at least tried it and I know what it looks like. But I'm hoping it lasts longer than a year. So we'll see.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing too, is like whenever you're trying something new, right? Like how many people who are watching slash listening, how many of you have moved to a new city and you're like, I'm gonna move to this new city, or we're gonna move to a new city and we're gonna try it out for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you stay or maybe you don't, right? But again, you have so much more control when you are your own boss and you're doing your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then like I just have a vision of you on Fridays, like with like a giant, I don't know, coffee or tea or whatever you drink, and like nice, super comfortable clothes, and
Mm-hmm.
just putting on whatever music you like to listen to, and just like having like a lovely day for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Going out to lunch or going for a walk midday, whatever you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that is also so nice to be able to have that time and still be able, to make money the rest of the days,
Yeah.
but to also have that hard stop to be like, no, come 4 o'clock, I'm done, and do something fun, which is, coach the
Mm-hmm.
boys volleyball. That's a fantastic
Yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah.
I love it, Danny.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. Like I'm fantasizing about my Fridays now, going, am I gonna, like, I want to paint the office. It's a dark gray and I want to paint it a nice bright white. And you know, I want to paint and I want to reorganize things because I feel like I just kind of moved everything in. And it's nice to go, because right now I'm fitting it in between, if I have a cancellation, I'm like, do I do notes or do I help fix up the office? And I have all these things that are waiting to be hung up in the office, and now I don't have to choose, right? I get to, on Fridays, I can either work from home, I can sleep in, I could go grocery shopping, which I have just found a newfound love for grocery shopping in the middle of the week. It is like my love language now. and and you know, I have that option, and it might be that there are some Fridays where I go from 9 to 3 and I am busting my butt and I do see an eval. I have 4 or 5 evals in the queue, right? And I do have to do those. Or it could be a day that I don't do any of that, and like I just work from home and I stay in my PJs all day and go have lunch with my husband on his lunch break. Like that flexibility, I'm like, oh, I can't. I'm like so excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you, right? And again, like there's something I say all the time, which then hopefully I don't butcher it. But basically, like if you can't find a job that you like, create one that you love. And so
Absolutely.
I love that you've created this new job for yourself, but also this new life for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this now's the time, right? You should be doing the kind of things that you want to be able to do and spending the time with people that you want to spend time with, whether they're
Absolutely.
clients or family members or friends or
Yeah.
whatever. So I think it's fantastic. So I know that like, next week will be your first, totally full time for
Yep.
yourself. And so I know that that is like new enough that I hate to ask you about like what else is coming down the
That's
pike for
okay.
you. But like, what do you think like the next year might behold for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I just I want to keep, you know, I think something that's really cool is I've connected with other small businesses. So I think continuing to collaborate with local small businesses, because I think although we're all in different, like there's a woman who um, is a client of mine who bakes her own sourdough bread. Like that's amazing. Like that's so cool that she does that, right? And being able to kind of collaborate and highlight those small businesses and work together and have, you know, maybe we host a Saturday morning play thing, right? And we all kind of get together and we showcase stuff like that. I think trying to get more involved in the community, I would really like, because I think that's the stuff that um, really just kind of sets me on fire. I think what's next is trying to see what it's like to do the insurance thing. We'll see. I'm trying to do that because I think that that's just something that's kind of been heavy on my heart, is that I think that there are some families in the area that can't afford the services, and I got into this to help people, and so I think that's an area that, like I said, it's been kind of heavy on my heart. So That, but then continuing to coach volleyball and being a basketball coach's wife and traveling and doing all this stuff and hosting, like this summer we're going to do a water week at the office where we're all in this grassy area next to the building and we're all just going to hang out and we're going to play in the water for speech and for the OT sessions that my OT is I can't even say my OT, the OT that is a 1099 at my at the office, right? Like being able to do stuff like that. I think I would love to do more speaking stuff because I love that and collaborate with other SLPs and SLP grad students. I think I'm doing a CEU in the fall. Little things like that, continuing our walk and talks where we connect with SLP grad students and SLPs, and then just continuing to get better as a wife and as a sister and a daughter and all those things, because I think now I'm finally starting to feel balanced and stuff. So, I mean, I know that was a lot and it sounds like a lot and people are probably like, oh, that's so much. How do you do it all? But like, that's all scattered throughout the next year. Okay. So don't DM me and say, what's your secret? Because I really don't have one, I promise. But yeah, I don't know. And there could be something on the horizon that I have no idea about just yet. So, and just helping more kids. And yeah, I think that's all that I really want out of the next year.
I love that. I mean, it's the overall theme, I think, is like saying yes to opportunities that
Yeah.
serve you, right?
Yep.
Like what, and serve your community, but also like
Mm-hmm.
don't burn you out and like whatever, right?
Right.
So it's like, building relationships with the communities and other business
Yeah.
owners, like dabbling in like a little like kind of summer camp-ish
Mm-hmm.
situation. Like I think all of that is great. Like if I could give you any advice, I'd say that like use this year as some experimentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like try some things, see what works, see what you like, see what you're like, well, I don't want to do that
Yeah.
again because
Right.
that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really like something that is also not talked about a lot is like there's different phases in business, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're like right now you're kind of heading into this new phase in your business where
Mm-hmm.
you are completely like free to make all of these
Yeah.
decisions, and I would advise you to keep your boundaries and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
but also to try some new things, right? You're trying insurance, you're trying the water week, you're trying some other
Yeah.
stuff. And I think all you'll then see at the end of, 6 months or a year, what of that is working for you
Yeah.
personally and working for your practice and working for your community. And then you make, your next decisions from there.
Yeah. And I think I've learned to be okay with saying like that's just not going to work for me. I think that's something that's been really hard, because hard but good is that it's okay to say and just like leave it at that. Now, I am not a concise, I know this is shocking to the people listening or watching, but I'm not a concise person. I'm very verbose. And so I tend to over explain, right? Like that's not going to work for me because of this, and this, because I want that external validation, right? I want you to say like, oh yeah, that is a lot. Like, but I think just being able to go like, this just isn't for me. And like, I've been trying to do, I really want to do play groups in the office. I think it'd be a blast. I have tried to promote it 3 times and it has tanked every single time. And I'm like, well, that just might not be my thing. I think it would be a blast, but maybe that's just not my thing, or it's not my thing right now. Maybe I need to get more traction. Maybe I need insurance, right? And so I think being able to not take stuff like that as a personal failure, right? I didn't fail because I tried it, and people just aren't biting on the playgroup thing. And that's okay. It's not a reflection of who I am. It's not a reflection of my business. And so I think trying to be okay with things not working out has also been a big part of this, is like being able to say, this might not work out, me going full time in my office. And that's going to be okay, because then I have the resolve that I tried it and we tried it. My husband and I can look back at this and go, we tried it, and that's okay. And I think so often we can put all our eggs in this basket and I have to make this successful. And by golly, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make this a successful practice. But there are a lot of extenuating circumstances that might not, that might impact that. And so I think being okay with that has been a big thing for me, which is so against who I am as a person. Everything has to succeed. And I think that's why I've tried to share as much as I have on Instagram, is because I want people to be okay with things not working out, because they just don't sometimes. That's just how it is. And so yeah, I think that was a big part of it for me as well.
Well, I love that. And like for everyone who again is watching slash listening and has followed you on Instagram for a while, like I just love how open and honest you are about these things,
Thanks.
but also how you're like evolving as a person, right? That's one of the things that I
Thanks.
also don't think that like people think about that much as business owners
Mm-hmm.
is like when you become a business owner, you really do take on a new identity and you're forced to use like a whole new set of
Mm-hmm.
skill or learn a new sets of skills, use a different part of your brain, develop that business mindset part of your brain and whatnot. But it really does force you to like, who am I becoming, and
Oh
and
yeah.
to change that a little bit. And so I just, as someone who's watched you like from the very beginning of your practice, and I even followed you before that, but I've just watched you evolve into this like different
Thanks.
person than I feel like you were when I very first started following you, and that has been such a treat to
That's
watch.
really a big compliment, and I appreciate that because I think it has been, and I've learned. So I mean, I just that's very kind of you to say. So thank you, because I think um I've tried to be transparent. I mean, this all kind of came out of COVID, right? This whole messy SLP thing, it was weird, and then Instagram is now just way more than it was 4 years ago, right? And so I think it's been interesting to evolve, and I think this the messy SLP started with a blog where I was trying to be vulnerable and stuff because that's just something I am not good at with the masses, right? I love an appearance of everything being great. And so I think that when I started sharing, just like, hey, this is kind of a hot mess, right? And people were like, it is a hot mess. Thank you. I feel that too. It was really nice. And I think that it's been good for me, and it has been validating, right? And it's been good for me to see that people do need to be told that it's okay to ask for help. Like I have a lot of people that that I talk to about all of this stuff because I'm not a business person. I'm learning how to do business, but by my education is in speech language pathology. It's in public relations, right? I had to learn to ask for help, and I had to be okay going, I don't know what that form is and what that's for. And I have no idea how to do this. And luckily, we have a CPA who's phenomenal, and the landlord that I rent my office from is an amazing businessman and has helped me a ton in learning, right? And so I think if I could encourage people by just kind of showing my evolution and it's being perceived as being a positive one, then it's all worth it. And so I really appreciate that very much.
You're so welcome. I mean, I just appreciate you on all the levels, right? So for anyone who wants to kind of like learn more about you or your practice, especially maybe people who are listening to this on the audio podcast,
Yeah.
where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram on the Messy SLP. You can visit my private practice website, which is themessyslp.com. You can also look up my business is Messy Speech and Language Therapy on Facebook. I'm trying to post more like of what's going on at the office and stuff like that. So I do more of that on Facebook because I feel like I reach more potential clients on Facebook than I do on my Instagram. So I do more of that. I'm trying to do more of that on Facebook. DM me, and I love to communicate. I love to talk to people. I met through your Start Facebook group, I believe. I met a gal who's local, and we met up for coffee and we talked through things, and that's one of my favorite things to do. So reach out. You can email me at Dani, Dani, at themessyslp.com. And we'll chit chat. I will not give my phone number out over a podcast, but if we vibe via email, you'll get it. And yeah, I just love to collaborate and just chat with other SLPs. So
I love it. Well, thank you so much
thank
for
you.
spending time with us and for sharing your story and just being so open and vulnerable, but also inspirational at the same time. So thank you so much, Dani.
Thank you. Thanks for creating this space so that we can all do this. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right, thank you everyone. Take
Thanks.
care. Bye.
Bye.